All right. Let's keep going on here though, guys, as we move into the college football slate. Only 3 games that we're going to predict, and but before we dive into those, obviously the college coaching carousel is already moving pretty quick, with James Franklin being gone, Napier being gone, Mike Norvell in Florida State. I know they said they're committed to him, but we're probably going to see a coaching change there at the end of the year.
I don't know. That
calls from
buyout
inside the house in Baton Rouge are getting real
buyout,
loud.
Hey, that buy money is pretty big, though. I don't know about Norvell.
You'll
honestly,
pay it.
They'll find a way. Penn State found a way. Florida found a way. Florida State will find a way. LSU will find a way. But like, so going into last week, right? There was people in sports media. Brady Quinn was on Dan Patrick's show and was talking about it, and I heard it from others that if Michigan had lost this past weekend to Washington, that Michigan had to start thinking about a coaching change, or if this game in I forget it's a couple of the other comparisons that he said that start thinking about a coaching change. And I thought, look, just because Penn State makes a business decision after 11 years of James Franklin does not mean that teams need to start getting drastic after a year or 2 or even 3. Like, sometimes it takes time to build a program. Brian Kelly, and Kyle, get ready for this one whenever you listen to it. It took Brian Kelly like a decade to really rebuild and set Notre Dame up for the future. Even if he couldn't get them over the top, he laid the groundwork for what Marcus Freeman is doing. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, like, it took a long time for them to get to a championship level. And I get in the NIL era, in the 12-team playoff era, like, patience is going to wear thin quicker. But like, Sharon Moore's been at Michigan. This is year number 2. I don't think you need to start getting hitting the panic button so early. Like, yes, James Franklin fired.
Wait. That's a thing?
I heard a couple people in sports media last week saying it, that if they'd lost to Washington, that Michigan had to start thinking about it. And I was like,
get the fuck out of here.
No, they don't. But like, how quickly should college programs think about the next step? Mike, I'll let you give your thoughts first since you're with us.
I mean, I think every program has to have their level. You're looking at a team right now, and we'll use the Florida Gators as the example. It's kind of been a whirlwind since the loss of Urban Meyer. They've gone through multiple coaches. They've gone through multiple rebuilds. They've gone through different brands. Maybe you press the button there a little faster because you're going, okay, I'm seeing signs of the guy who was before him, and getting lazy potentially in the recruiting, and hoping that because you're a multi-million-dollar organization and university that you're going to be able to use the NIL and the transfer portal and things like that. But a team like Michigan, like you said, were national champions 3 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, you're in a spot where there's one team that's going to win the national title every year. There's 12 teams that are going to make the playoffs every year. And sometimes it's out of your control if you're the 13, 14, 15 because of having to get a group of 5 team in there, having to potentially get multiple lost teams in there that are playing in superior conferences and things along those lines. So if you're a Power 4 school, I think you have to look and see what your recruiting class looks like for years 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you're actually considering getting rid of a guy in 2 years, if you have a freshman quarterback that you've just recruited, that's going to be your guy in the next 2 seasons, and that's the coach that brought him in, maybe you give him that leash. Maybe you look at a guy like Lane Kiffin and you go, can someone just take him off of our hands?
Right.
So, I mean, I think every program obviously has to look at it different. Georgia, not going undefeated. We don't hear Kirby Smart's on the hot seat because they've lost a football game.
Right.
I think you have to look at your thought process of where you are as a school, and look at it from that standpoint. I mean, the guy from Georgia Tech right now, the hottest coach in the world, and people are like, can't wait to see where he's going to end up. He's building a program at Georgia Tech. Maybe he doesn't leave. Maybe he just doesn't leave.
Right.
And if he doesn't leave, then you have even less coaches going for these high-profile jobs. Are they high-profile because they're a Power 4 school? Cool. But when Diego Pavia leaves Vanderbilt, if that guy doesn't have anything behind Diego Pavia, who's saying he's not looking to leave?
Right. Yeah.
So maybe you look at what you're building that isn't on the field, but what is going to happen next. And if you're not pleased with that recruiting class and what's on the field, then maybe you address that situation.
All right, Sean, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think an important thing is like it's very much a case by case basis. I mean, I think the big thing is you can't get caught up in what everyone else is doing, and you kind of have to keep your blinders on. It's not a situation to panic, and generally, firing in the middle of the year is something that should only, in my opinion, it should really only be reserved for a situation like Penn State, where it's like, look, we've told you time and again. We've addressed this time and again, and now they're breathing down my neck too much. I got to do it. You know, like it's we've gone to bat for you. You went to bat for yourself, and you swung and missed. Now I don't really have much of a choice, and I'd be willing to bet coaches in that situation have it pretty much presented to them well ahead of time. Like look, man, you put it up. Now you gotta doubt the critics here. But I mean, it's just, I mean, in the NFL, I've talked about it too, where like, you know, all these rookie quarterbacks come in and like, what is the last 6 first overall quarterbacks have lost their coach mid-season. And in college, I think there's like it's just kind of a short attention span in both leagues. I feel like it's just way too, what have you done for me lately? Not what are you going to do for me in the near future? And I think you got to look at that, not to mention the fact that if you don't have, like, you're not cutting a guy loose unless you have a plan or somebody in mind better, right? I don't care if you're in the NFL, if you're in the NBA, if you're in college football, if you don't have a target in mind or at least an idea of what that target's going to bring to the table, sometimes I feel like teams fire their coach just because they think it's the right thing to do. Sure. And then they end up hiring someone that's just completely derails the program because you either did it at the wrong time or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I guess, you know, you're keeping the blinders on. It's also like if you're in a situation where you want the best candidate and you know you have to do it midseason to get that candidate, I guess sometimes there's an argument for it. But, you know, the smaller schools and the programs that aren't going to have like Penn State's got pull. Like there's a big school, it's a big conference, it's a big house to play in. And a ton of money if they believe in you. And so to get out there first is probably a good play for them. You know, if like Missouri tanked a couple games and decided their coach was, you know, a smaller school in a big conference, they don't have the same play. So stay in your lane, believe in the coach that you believed in, find out if it's completely dead or just needs poked a couple of times. Hey, is there anything we can do for you? But yeah, I would say I would err on the side of holding first until you felt you didn't have a choice. So definitely not early in a coach's career. That's just silly.
DJ?
And I will say most schools, in comparison to the pros, they do a lot better job of like really playing the process out before they cut the cord. You don't see a lot of like 1 year, 2 year firings. Like we had one in Florida State a couple of years ago, but that situation was just dire. We needed to get rid of Willie Taggart at the time. But most schools do stay the course. They stay through at least one, if not multiple, recruiting classes before they say, "Hey, this is not improving." I mean, look at James Franklin, Penn State. Fucking Billy Napier, for example, got longer than he probably should have, honestly. So every situation is different. You know what I mean? I do think.
Well, and the playoffs going to help that patience level. Like having 12 spots versus like 2 or 4 should help. You know, like the boosters and the fans hold a little bit.
Wait, are you saying they'll be more patient or less patient?
More patient. I mean, I think
I don't know about that actually. I
you think it goes the other way?
I mean, James Franklin just got fired. They were in the play. They were a game away from going to the fucking title game last year, and
not this year.
Well, yeah.
So,
but that's what happens when you lose to UCLA and Northwestern in back-to-back weeks.
Right. But I just meant the patience as far as when you said they're letting them get through some recruiting classes. I think knowing that whatever 2 years down the line that there's 12 spots available might make just all right, ride it out. And
I think it can depend though, because also with more playoff positions, and I think this is maybe what EJ was thinking, with more playoff positions, if you're a program that you're being projected as maybe a top 5 or 6 seed, and you fail to even get in.
Oh, no. Sure.
Pressure is going to.
I was talking more in the lines of like in a rebuild, like where Penn State just collapsed. They're going to hand this over to a new coach. I think there's a level of patience there because you don't have to within 3 or 4 years get up to the top 3.
Oh yeah, it's a reset.
Get me in a position to get in that top 12.
Correct.
And have
it's a real reset. You know what I'm saying? But look at it. You have James Franklin gone. I don't know if we forgot this, but Clemson was there too, also in the final 12, and Dabo's on the hot seat. So I mean, one of those things where like, I think the playoff is going to actually create more urgency, if you will. Schools will be less patient in comparison to before. That's why I think it's going to happen more. And on top of that too, also will dictate that.
If you think that Dabo Swinney is truly on the hot seat at Clemson, I have some oceanfront property in Lincoln, Nebraska I would like to sell you. Because the reality of the situation is this: he gets the leash to go 8-4 a year or two, because that guy has found a way to get a program with unknown quarterbacks that aren't the top recruits across the country into playoff games. And yes, it helps that he plays in the ACC. And yes, it helps that that conference is not at the same level as other conferences throughout college football. But it's Dabo. He's going to be able to go 8-4.
I mean, it's a program that has had its little specks of greatness here and there, but it was never this long of a powerhouse.
Correct.
He's built a program. It's almost like a Paterno effect, where it's like, look, even if this is just what happens until he fades off,
he's getting another year. First off, I've been saying it all along.
And then we just let it go. You know, I don't think it's a rush to get him out.
Right. He has enough goodwill built in for the time he's been there to at least guarantee another year or two. You know what I'm saying? But I just don't know how Clemson's school, how they're going to operate. They may operate in the same way, like you mentioned, Sean, by Penn State. Paterno got a lot of time. So did James Franklin. Some schools are okay with waiting 10, 12, 15 years before cutting the cord. You know what I mean? So maybe that is Clemson. We'll see. But, I just think overall, go ahead.
Dabo next year is going to be going into year 18. They won national titles in 16 and 18. He's been there since 2008. Took over during the year.
I'm old.
So and he won titles in 16 and 18. They got back to the playoff in 19 and 20. Mm-hmm. And then were there in 2022, and then last year lost in the first round. So yeah, 3-4 so far this year, 2-3 in conference play. Dabo's not getting run out of town unless he wants to leave.
And I think we had those pressers you had. You remember you had those press conferences after week 2, week 3, those losses, and he was very vocal about that. But like, you know what? If you're on fire me, I'm still coaching. I'm still here. I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
He says that because he's confident. He's confident he has his job score. He's okay. That's why he says that.
If he's fired on Monday, he's hired somewhere on Wednesday. Like, he is not staying unemployed for very long,
without question.
But fast forward to next year, if you don't get this thing right, and even make the postseason this year, even at 6-6 and go to the Pop-Tart Bowl, you start off 3-4 next year. Not saying you're going to get a mid-year firing, but it's going to get real loud real quick.
Oh yeah,
if you have 2 bad seasons,
that's when the hot seat gets hot.
Yes,
right.
Correct. But yeah, ultimately, I think that the media, sports media, and again, it has become very hot takey. But like, the reaction to Penn State's firing, making a decade-long business decision, should not impact guys who are in year 2. Sherman may not be the guy at Michigan, because that was the name that Brady Quinn specifically brought up. He may not be the guy, but you're also not going to find that out in year 2.
Agreed.
With a freshman quarterback and a very young roster, they've lost 2 road games. They lost at Oklahoma. They lost at USC. But everybody was talking about Washington being disrespected and not being ranked last week, and Michigan put the hammer down on them. So, maybe don't give up on a guy in year 2. Quite.
We live in a world where week 1 not even 2 months ago, Caleb DeBoer lose to Florida State. Holy fuck. We got to get to the coach. And now number 1 in the country. Relax. It's okay.
Yeah.
You mean that Sherrard Moore lost to guy who was the Heisman front runner until he broke his hand, and a team that was ranked in the top 25 when they played them before they lost to Notre Dame this week.
Well, technically, when Michigan lost to them, USC
they weren't ranked yet, but they got
weren't ranked. Michigan fell
27th, 27th ranked
came in,
USC,
and then now Michigan's back in, USC's back
so,
out.
So what you're telling me is they lost 2 games that were 50-50 at best games.
Sure.
Unlike James Franklin, who got beat belt to ass by 3 teams that are going to win 7 games total.
Well,
Cool.
sure.
Right. And I just wanted to touch on the point that was made about, like, Penn State and some schools having the patience to wait 10, 12, 13 years. I think sometimes when you are a large program, as long as you're staying competitive and you're winning conference games and you're going to bowl games and the money's coming in, a lot of times when you give that big contract, you're like, hey, we'll give you at least 6 of these, right? Like you have 6 to put this thing together and get it the way you want it to run, and then we'll see what it looks like. Because those big schools, that level of patience, they've learned over the years that when you jump quickly and you make the quick hire and it doesn't work, and you start going like ship to ship to ship, it's very hard to build a program and to recruit and to sell anyone on belief in the program if there's no stability at all.
Right.
And you run the risk of that every time you hire someone.
Of course.
So you want to make sure it's deliberate and it's the right choice. And there's a reason why they haven't just rushed out and snagged the first guy that came in for an interview. Because they want to make sure this is going to work.
And the world NIL, people react. The kids react. Okay, well, he's gone, coach. Oh, I'm not going anymore. I decommit.
Yeah,
but the good news is if you build a culture quick enough, you can get some guys to flip back. Because all they got to do is just flip a switch.
Yeah, I mean, there was I think it was a wide receiver recruit, Penn State, that was like, hey, I'm still committed to Penn State, but I've basically like left my DMs open, basically. So he's like, my plan is to go to Penn State, but I'm gonna kind of maybe see what's still out there. So it's like
I'm listening to the radar. I'm watching the weather map here.
And they have had a couple decommitments.
Just making sure that there's no storms on the horizon.